One of the guys that we've loved watching all season long is Ochai Agbaji. And tonight, he goes for 20 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, as the 6th-ranked Kansas Jayhawks make it 21-4 on the season, beating Oklahoma State 76-62. Kevin, beyond the game, is Kansas the team that you love the most in the Big 12?
Man, I think for a while I felt like Baylor is the best team. But over the last month, I think I start to lean Kansas, especially now with the Chalmers-Chachu injury. They have the best player on either team in Agbaji, who's been terrific. Jalen Wilson is really coming around. I think that's critical to them. He was disappointing earlier in the season. I really felt they needed more from him. But, since the middle of January, he's been in double figures in all but 2 games. He had 8 and 9 in those respective games. And that was an 8 and 8 and a 9 and 10. So, it's not like he hasn't been playing well. He really stepped up. He had an awesome game against Oklahoma this weekend. And I'll add one other thing with this team that I really like, even with Remy Martin sidelined to lose a little bit of the explosiveness. I like the look that they gave against Oklahoma, and they used a little again today with Zach Clemence at the 5. Because you think about Bill Self teams, they really want to play through the post, get the post ups from McCormack. And McCormack's really good. He's a weapon. He's great on the offensive glass. He can really score it. But I think I think he's a 20-minute-a-game guy. And I think for the other 20 minutes, to be able to go to a kind of 5-out look and get isolation opportunities for Wilson, for Agbaji, and for Christian Brown, it makes them really dangerous. And I like Clements a lot out of high school. He can stretch the floor. And he did a good job. He hung in on the boards against the Oklahoma big men. I saw a lot of that game this weekend. I thought Oklahoma gave him a great game at Allen Fieldhouse, but Clements really turned it with the ability to open up the floor for the rest of these Kansas guards. And I think especially if you don't have Remy Martin, who's a more explosive shot creator, you need all those extra edges you can get to get your guards in space. And I think the look that they can give moving forward with Clements at the 5 is really interesting for this Kansas team.
RC, where do you stand with KU?
I'm on the bandwagon, but I'm concerned. I think they'll go as far as the consistency of David McCormack takes them or allows them to be. I think he needs to be perimeter-wise. I think they'll play with anybody in the country. They just don't have, the bodies, the size, the physicality that McCormack brings, and we don't know. I mean, he can disappear on you. I mean, we've seen that in the past, and there's been some concerns. I know he had a double-double tonight, but if he doesn't show up, I think they're vulnerable. I do, like you said, what Zach Clements, the dimension he brings to them, and it allows them if McCormack's not scoring inside, it opens up the lane, clearing them out. When you sub them out. But if they're gonna go and and get another championship, they need David McCormack to be more consistent. He needs to be a double-double guy in the tournament or for the rest of the season leading into the tournament if they're gonna cut down nets. But I am right now in the conference. I think they're the team to beat.
One of the things that I look at with this team is what DeJuan Harris is doing from a game-to-game basis. And I think it's so critical that he's giving them productive distribution. Yes. They need that because Christian Brown is a terrific shot maker and has served up in big-time spots in games for this team, big-time shots. And Ochai, they could play through him on any given night, and he could win them a game. He's done that this season. But for me, at the end of the day, when you have these versatile wing-type players who can give you perimeter shooting, and in Agbaji's case, the ability to get to the cup and make things happen, draw a foul, pull up off the dribble, what are you getting consistently at the 1? And for me, Kansas is not a team with elite point guard play. That's one thing. So when you look at their group and you sit here and say, okay, David McCormack hasn't been what he was down the stretch last year. If you combine that with inefficiency at point guard against a team that does have good guard play, that's where Kansas, to me, is in trouble. That's where I worry about them because they don't have a terrific bench. They don't. Joseph Yesufu has not panned out. If you look at what they did tonight against Oklahoma State, it was a starting five. So that's why, to me, in my mind, I've been tracking DeJuan Harris and what he gives them, Kevin, because I think it's important for them from a macro level, but also just from NCAA tournament. To me, you have to have a composer. And as good of a player as Ochai is, there's got to be the right setup there. And that's come and gone at times for them. When Harris is on like he was tonight, he gave them a good game tonight. 12 points, 5 assists, but he managed the game well. He had control of it. I think that's an underlying key to the Jayhawks.
100%.
Let me ask you guys this then. Who's been more consistent in you guys' opinion between the two? We talked about McCormack. We talked about Harris. Who's been more consistent?
Probably Harris.
I think Harris. Yeah.
That's why I think that's why I went with McCormack. I think Harris has shown me he's been more consistent and more reliable than McCormack has, and that's why I think they'll go as far as their guards take him. I think he's been pretty steady for him. Yeah, McCormack's ability to kind of man things inside for a Bill Self team is if he shows up and he's a double, they're going to play with anybody.
I think the one thing that's important with Harris, right, is he's never going to be Frank Mason. He's never going to be one of these great, Jayhawk point guards that creates off the bounce explosive. That's just not who he is. But I think what he brings is he's like a lot of the NBA glue guy point guards where you get the ball up the court and then you make good decisions, right? And right now, the last 5 games, 29 assists compared to 10 turnovers. He's getting steals. He's great defensively in the passing lanes all the time. He's picking his spots when he's shooting the ball from deep. Like, I think that's what they need from DeJuan Harris. Now, do you want a more dynamic shot creator in March? I think you probably do, especially because as good as Ochai Agbaji is, he's not a guy that you're rolling the ball to and saying, go create one, right? He relies on running off of screens or, catch and shoot opportunities. He's not an ISO scorer. If they're looking for a bucket to go get one, they really need it to be Brown. And I think you wish you had the extra element of Remy Martin who could do that as well.
Yes.
Who could come off the bounce in a situation and just make something happen with the ball in his hands. But I think what Harris does for them, as long as he is playing under control, like you alluded to, Fanta, he just gives you a tremendous steadying force to go with all these guys who want to hunt shots, want to be able to make plays off the bounce. He can just probe, make good passes, make good decisions, and defend. And I think today was a step forward for him. One of his better games of the season, scoring the basketball. But again, it's not really about that for him. It's about taking care of the basketball. It's about making good decisions, about getting in passing lanes. And I just felt like today, and really the last 5 games or so, he's done a much better job of managing the game and creating for others. And the numbers bear that out.
So Kansas comes away a winner over Oklahoma State, and you have the piece of news of Jonathan Shamwa Chachua sustaining and suffering that major injury. This is Field of 68 After Dark, Sirius XM, Channel 84. Kevin, I'll stay with you. What does this do to Baylor's ceiling?
I think it's significant because, not only was he a really steady offensive player and a great rebounder, but he was, the heart and soul of that team, a leader, an emotional guy, a guy who understood the defense inside and out. I think that really hurts them more because, right, like Flo Thamba is really good. He's really steady. And your small ball 5 option, Jeremy Sohan's probably going to be a first-round pick. Might be a lottery pick. So it's not like you're dropping off massively from a talent standpoint. But, the understanding of the defensive system, I think, is the thing that concerns me with losing him, particularly because Baylor's defense has struggled a little bit. In conference play, it hasn't been quite as good of late. So, yeah, I mean, I want to watch them play a couple times before I have a real sense of where they're at. Obviously, the Texas game was impressive, and he went out very early in that game. But at the same time, I want to see him a couple times before I say, this changes their national title ceiling. I still think they have the pieces. They have dynamic guards. They have big wings who can really create. They're good defensively. They have a national championship coach. But without a doubt, on paper, it hurts them immensely because he's just so important to the Baylor culture, right? I mean, everyone talks about, the way that they play together and, his selflessness in their offense and on their defensive side as well, with the way that he kind of directs traffic, we really, really missed.
Interesting stuff overall on the Bears and what the challenges are ahead of them, because as you said, Jonathan Tchamwa is the heart and soul of that program, and you lose him in the heart of February. That is a major, major loss. We'll see. Don't ever doubt Scott Drew.
They have something, though, that not everyone has. They have great point guard play.
Yes.
And not everyone has that. We talk about a lot, like so many of the teams that we've been discussing that are national championship teams. Think about that 8. How many of them can you say have great point guard play?
Well said. No. Look, less than half. It's an interesting point, and it's a good point. That's why Randolph Childress is on Field of 68 After Dark with Kevin Sweeney, and I'm John Fanta on Sirius XM, Channel 84. Up next, we take a look around the ACC, where the relationship status is, it's complicated. This is the Field of 68 After Dark.